Alison Botha's story is one of unimaginable horror. What began as an ordinary night turned into a fight for survival. Alison was abducted near her home in South Africa, brutally attacked, raped, stabbed, disemboweled, and her throat was slashed so deeply she was nearly decapitated. Yet somehow, she lived to tell her story. On the night of December 18, 1994, 27-year-old Alison spent a day at the beach with her friends in Port Elizabeth. After having them over at her apartment for pizza and games, Alison drove her last friend home and returned to her apartment around 1 a.m. Unable to park in her usual parking spot right in front of her apartment, she found a spot under a large, shadowy tree on the already poorly lit street. As she reached for her bag of clean laundry in the passenger seat, she felt a gust of warm air as her driver's door was yanked open. A blonde-haired man holding a knife ordered her to move over, threatening to kill her if she resisted. Terrified, she obeyed. The man, who identified himself as Clinton, took control of the car, claiming he just needed it for an hour. Clinton, whose real name is Franz du Toit, drove to pick up his accomplice, Theuns Kruger. Once he was picked up, the two drove Alison to a secluded area just outside the city. Franz and Theuns told Alison that they were going to have sex with her and asked if she would fight them. Helpless, Alison told them no. Both men, known for their violent history against women, raped her and decided she couldn't live to identify them. First, they tried to suffocate her, but even though she lost consciousness, Alison clung to life. When that failed, their brutality escalated. They stabbed Alison at least 30 times in the abdomen, deliberately targeting her reproductive organs. When her body twitched, they felt what they did wasn't enough and slit her throat 17 times. Alison later recalled, "His movements were making a sound, a wet sound. It was the sound of my flesh being slashed open. He was cutting my throat with the knife, again and again and again." The men stepped back and admired what they had done. They were confident that she was dead, and they left. Alone in the sand and broken glass, Alison wrote her attackers' names in the dirt, followed by, "I love Mom." But as she saw headlights in the distance, she gained a bit of hope. When Alison began moving toward the headlights, she realized the full extent of her injuries. As she pulled herself up, her head started to fall backwards since she had nearly been decapitated. Meanwhile, she could also feel something slimy protruding from her abdomen, her intestines. She had to use one hand to keep her organs from spilling out, and the other to hold onto her head. While following the headlights, her sight faded in and out, and she fell multiple times. But each time she managed to get up again until she finally reached the road. She collapsed on the white line, knowing it would increase her chances of being seen. A young veterinary student named Tian Eilerd, who was visiting Port Elizabeth on vacation, saw Alison lying in the middle of the road. He used his veterinary training to tuck Alison's exposed thyroid back inside her body, and he called emergency services for help. She was rushed to the hospital and somehow survived. She was also able to provide critical information that led to the arrest of her attackers. The subsequent Noordhoek Ripper trial captured the attention of South Africans everywhere. Dubbed the Ripper rapists, Franz du Toit and Theuns Kruger pled guilty to 8 charges, which included kidnapping, rape, and attempted murder. They were both found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in August of '95. Alison turned her pain into purpose, becoming one of South Africa's first women to publicly speak about rape. She traveled to over 35 countries, inspiring other survivors to come forward and tell their stories. In '95, Alison won the prestigious Rotarian Paul Harris Award for Courage Beyond the Norm, as well as Femina Magazine's Women of Courage Award. She was also honored as Port Elizabeth's Citizen of the Year. Alison has written 2 books, and in 2016, her survival story was brought to life in the movie Alison. Alison also gave birth to 2 sons, defying the damage inflicted by her attackers. But her journey hasn't been without setbacks. In 2023, after serving 28 years, her attackers were released on parole, and just months later, Alison suffered a brain aneurysm. She received surgery to stop the hemorrhage and to relieve fluid buildup on her brain. The aneurysm left her with a weakened left arm and leg, in need of speech therapy, and with a permanent stent to drain liquid buildup in her skull. The last update about Alison's condition was posted to her Facebook on December 9, 2024. She is in high spirits and has continued to make progress at rehab. While a long road to recovery is ahead of her, Alison will bounce back yet again.